So, Denise O'Farrell, why get a pre-qualification?
Pre-qualifications are very important for a number of reasons. One, you really want to know what your spending power is going to be, what you
Yeah,
can afford to buy, and what your payments are going to be. The
yeah,
lenders will also be able to give you an estimate of what their additional costs will be. The pre-qual for what that's for one part of it. The other part of it's a really competitive market right now. Um, Sellers are scrutinizing the strength of your pre-qualification letter. Pre-qualification letter is basically somebody has taken your word for it that these are your assets, these are your liabilities, and based on that, we will give you a loan of X amount at X
hmm
interest rate.
yeah,
Pre-approval is one step further than that. That is when the lender will actually verify your assets. They'll look at your bank statements. They'll pull your credit. They'll look at all the other things that you have coming and going, and then from the basis of that, they'll be able to say, "We've this buyer has been pre-approved." Now, if
yeah,
I'm a seller and I get one buyer who has a pre-approval letter versus a buyer who's a pre-qualification letter, obviously I'm going to be much more secure entering into a contract with a person who has already been pre-qualified or
hmm
pre-approved.
hmm
So that's something that buyers should know about. There's two
right.
different things, and when you're talking to your lender, that's an important distinction to make.
Now, isn't it true that real estate agents like you and me, we have lenders that we like, that we seem to have a little leverage because they're wanting business from us? And how does that work?
Mhm. Well, what's really great about having a good lender that I've worked with in the past that's knowledgeable, I know that when a bump rises in the road, which it occasionally does during a transaction, they're on it, they take care of it quickly, they're responsive, and they're really working hard to find a problem and try to get that
Yeah,
loan closed. It's
right.
they'll move mountains to get that loan closed.
Yep.
So that's good to have. It's good to have a lender like that,
Well, you have,
and
well,
also
isn't
they're
it?
accessible. I
Yeah,
it's
well,
about 800
they're going to
numbers.
answer again, like the builders reps. They're going to answer your phone call because they want
Hmm.
more and more business from you.
Hmm.
Where sometimes we get calls, and you know this. Somebody will call, say from Maryland, and say, "Hey, I'm working with the lender up here." How do you approach that? Because I have a rule that if I can't get my hands around their neck on the day of closing, I'm not happy. How do you handle? What do you think about that?
I don't quite go quite that far, but I definitely have a very in depth conversation with the buyer, saying, your lender may be licensed to do business here. How many transactions do they do here? And also, what's their underwriting department? Like, I had a really bad situation once where buyer loved his local bank, loved his local lender based out of New York. So I called him and said, "Hey, are you licensed in North Carolina? Have you done business here before?" "Oh, yeah, yeah, we've done it lots of time before." That was a nightmare of a closing because his underwriting department just didn't understand that a resale transaction in North Carolina can close typically in as little as 30 days
Hmm.
or less. And their underwriting department was some office somewhere in New York, and people were gone on vacation, and nobody really had a sense of urgency
Yeah,
that this loan needed to be closed this week.
yeah,
So I think they just didn't really get how we work down
yeah,
here,
yeah.
and
Well,
we missed two closing deadlines because of that.
wow. Well, it's neat again having again you and I are buyer agents, and but we can also help people
Mhm.
buy and sell in the greater Charlotte area. But we like to help get buyers the keys, and there are a lot of moving parts. I think people look at us and say, "Wow, you guys make a ton of money for you don't do much, do you?" It's like, well, there are a lot of moving parts in a transaction, and you want a professional that can hold your hand all the way through it. Especially if we're being compensated from the seller. What do you care? I mean, we're here to help you and we're motivated just like the lender. We don't get paid until you get the keys. And the same thing with new construction. We don't care if it takes a year for you to close. A lot of agents want to get paid in 30 days. We don't really care because we're helping people. What's your little slogan that you say? What's your little thing?
I, I really feel like I'm helping people to upgrade their life. I want to
Yeah.
take you from one living situation to a new one, which is better for your current stage of
Yeah.
life.
Right. And real quick, we do a lot of new construction. Should they apply with the builder's lender? And if they do that, should they also shop that loan?
I always recommend people shop the loan. And applying with the builder's lender, again, it depends on the interest rate. It depends on the incentives.
Yeah.
In the winter, and still a couple of the builders now are offering really generous incentives
Hmm.
to towards closing costs if you go with their pre-approved lender,
Yeah.
and they're up to the point. One of them was 3% of the contract price, and that buys your interest rate down a significant amount. You can get like your 2-1 buy down, which basically gets your interest rate bought down for a couple of years while the rates are just skirting a little higher at the moment. So
And again, the
it's
builder.
hard sometimes
Mhm.
for an
Yeah.
outside lender to beat that amount, but if it's a smaller amount like $2,000-3,000, often they can be competitive.
Yeah, and the nice thing is, as a consumer, they're the consumer, so they have the right to choose. And I know how much you focus on client care, that you're going to help them again manage all the little parts. So that's important. So I
Hmm.
remember when we first, I'm kind of transitioning, when we one of the first transactions we did, I was showing this a couple new, and then they decided that they wanted to look at used, and I asked you to help, and you got right on that. And we're going to talk about new versus used, and that's coming up next.